We'll get talk about this in a second.
Okay.
So are we ready? Well, this is Candace Stewart. Welcome to my podcast, Trade Secrets. And today I have one of my favorite people. I know I always say that, but it's really true. One of my favorite people, Robert Carranza, who I've known for a long time. And he's an incredible, producer, mixer. He does all kinds of stuff. Okay, he's a designer. He's amazing. Anyway, hey, Robert, how you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. It's good to be had. So I start out, it's not really scripted, and I start out kind of just like, it's the James Lipton approach, from the Actors Studio, only we're not going to cry. A lot of people cry. Where were you born?
Well, first of all, let me say a couple things about you.
Okay.
Because I think it's important to be said.
Well, thank you.
I don't think there's been anybody in this career. I mean, there's a few of you, a few ladies.
Paula, who I love, yeah.
All those, who've made careers out of most people and have never not apologized, but thanked you for it. And thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
All I hear is people tell me great things that you've said about me and all that kind of stuff.
It's easy. You're cool.
It's you brought more careers to many people.
Well, thank you for saying so.
And I love your passion for it.
Oh, thanks. Well, and back at you. I think I was joking with someone the other day, and I said, basically, my method is just to train my future clients.
There you go.
And I remember one time Rose Mann, who is the grande dame of what I do, she said to me, it's really important when your alum come back that you treat them right and that you not treat them like it. And I can't promise that always happens, because sometimes you'll give them somebody a little green. But I try to do that and try to make sure that the alumni, and a lot of people that I've fired come back and work with me all the time. But, well, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that.
I just thought it had to be said.
Oh,
anyhow,
thank
so
you.
I was born in Montebello, California.
Oh, okay.
I'm one of the few born and raised in Los Angeles.
I was actually born in Fontana.
Oh, there you go.
Go ahead.
And, just kind of local boy in town. And
what's your mom and dad do?
Dad left early, so don't really know what he ended up being.
Aw.
But,
I'm sure he'd be proud.
Yeah, my mom was a school teacher.
Dude, single mom school teacher.
How
many siblings?
5.
Holy crap. Wait, so you're one of 6 or one of 5?
One of 5.
Wow.
Yeah. So
and where do you fall in that?
I was a baby.
Oh, okay. Yeah, me too.
So mom was gone a lot.
Yeah.
And so music and band and all that stuff was the caretaker.
Right.
Not because mom didn't want to be there, but it's like
she's working.
She's working. By the time she got home after school, I was already home.
Yeah.
Going to play music.
Yep.
And all that kind of jazz.
What instruments do you play?
I played trumpet when I started, and then I started playing drums after that.
Oh, really? I never knew you were drumming.
And then was drumming for a while, and then trumpet was cool, but it wasn't as cool as the drums for chicks. Oops,
agreed.
Sorry, I can't say that now.
You can say anything you want. This is a free zone.
No, I'm joking. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sorry if I offend anyone. But anyhow,
we'll be saying that a lot.
Yeah. So that was it. It was just I was in a band when I was 11.
Wow, cool.
And
what was the name of your first band?
We were called Lethargic.
Was the music really
slow? We were like at that time, like at the same period of like Megadeth and
like a thrash metal band.
Yeah, like Metallica was getting their going. Armored Saint was another band that was local.
Yeah.
We're talking. This is the early '80s, Yeah. And
I'm not older than you, so I was already 30 by then.
Yeah. But like there was a place called Middle Earth in Downey where James Hetfield is from.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot he's local too.
Local in Norwalk, and we used to go there on the weekends. And we used to
for
see
whatever
those
reason,
guys.
Norwalk is the place where where you have to go file all your legal papers.
Yeah.
Isn't that it?
Yeah,
like everything you have to get is Norwalk.
Yeah. So I live in Whittier now.
Right. Yeah.
Which is not that far from there anymore, but.
Got you.
And it was just funny to walk in and those guys were like, "What's your band's name?" And we're like, "Well, what's your band's name?"
Yeah.
And, Lars was like, "We're called Metallica," and we're like, "Metal Liquor?"
He's still not very tall. Yeah, Metal Liquor. I like it. I think that's even a better name.
And he goes, "Well, what's your band name?" We're Lethargic, and he was just like, "Oh, that's funny, Lethargic." Speed metal.
So yeah, I mean, 11. We get to the question of like what kind of clubs could you play in at 11?
Well, that was the thing. We were playing clubs, but we were doing backyard parties more.
Right. Yeah.
Backyard parties were the shit back in the day.
Dude, still, let's go have one.
$5, you know.
You should have one next week. Yeah. I'll come.
West Covina, just the local area. You're playing backyard parties. It was fun. And we did a couple of shows at the Whiskey. We couldn't go on stage until we literally had to wait outside.
Right.
On the side door.
Right.
And then you would go in, you know, and then you were allowed to be on the Troubadour. We did the same thing. We have to wait. They wouldn't let us pull it. They, you know.
Well, and they're all ages clubs, at least, you know, it's technically. So that doesn't surprise me that would happen. How far did Lethargic get?
We got pretty far.
Wow.
By the time we took it real serious. Well, like I was 12. Yeah. We took it real serious.
Dude, serious.
And then we kind of signed a record deal with a label.
Oh, is this your first experience with a record company?
Yeah. And this is what led me to be where I am
the other side of the glass.
You know, watching these assholes run this business.
Yeah,
that don't know
kidding,
what the fuck
dude.
they're
No
doing.
kidding. I am not ashamed to say, and I know there are those of you out there that are A&R people that have done wonderful things.
Yes.
The Lenny Warnekers and people in this world who've shaped our culture and the soundtrack
Herb
of our
Alpert,
lives.
Jerry Ma,
Absolutely.
we just lost Moss.
But people that knew how to make a record, and I think that's what's so frustrating for people like us in the business now in many areas, which is that the people that we're working with don't know anything about what we do and how record gets made. You know, and ultimately record companies are banks, but serve a very valuable purpose. I mean,
terrible interest rates.
Terrible 85% interest rate, right? But where are you going to get that kind of distribution and promotion if you prior to this?
They're
the
necessary.
Internet?
I mean, you know, look at.
I would say for touring and video in particular.
Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of record labels. I've been very successful with some of them. So I have no grimes about it. The only part I have is when you
get the artist gets screwed.
Well, the balance of it's very rare you walk into a room and the A&R person or anyone in the business understands what it is to be on the road, understands what it is to make a record.
Really?
I mean, you have your whole life to write your first record.
Exactly. I mentioned that a couple times. Yeah. Like it's the Freshman Effort is an album that they've lived with for a long time. I have many favorite bands. And then the sophomore effort can like make or break you because you've got you got to write it in 3 months, then you got to promote it. And it's, that's sort of, I would say, the turn in the road where a really good band can go off rails.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, you got all this pressure to follow up your sophomore record.
Exactly.
And again, you have your whole life to write it, and then you got to do it in a couple months. You're like, Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some talented cats, and we give them their credit for sure, who recognize an artist. And Tom Petty, one time I was talking to Tom Petty, and he was saying, I can't imagine becoming an artist today. God rest in peace, Tom Petty. But he was saying, because he goes, someone actually cared enough about us to develop us. Yeah. And someone took the time to make us rehearse and let us do these smaller tours, slung us in the van. Yeah. By the way, why is everybody's in a van? Yeah. That's it. He said, but artists today, they don't really get that kind of development. Sometimes I see it, and I'm excited to see it when I see someone who believes in an artist. And you and I have both seen throughout our careers where it's the 3 major labels and then the imprints. And then the imprints get huge and then they get swallowed back up into a major. But it's really just, we're Warner, Sony, EMI, BMG. Am I missing somebody? No. There's like 4, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And the imprints they're in.
They're all closets in Universal now. Like some cubicle. There's really no labels anymore.
Dude. Yeah, don't get me started. I had dinner last night with Mark Needham, who I adore, who's an incredible mixer producer. But we were at dinner and Art Kelm walked in, who's the chief engineer at Capitol, and we all started sort of just bitching. But you know what? It's afforded us our livelihood and afforded us our careers, and I'm super, super grateful. I'm glad I'm kind of on the other side of the arc, as it were.
Me too.
I wouldn't want to be starting now, I don't think.
Yeah, the development side of it's weird. It's like a friend of mine has this great line in a song that says, on this vine trying to find into the bottle and then into your mind.
Oh, I love that.
And it's like, that's development. You let something grow, you see it, and then you kind of like give it things. So for our band, when we were young, someone did that for us.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How cool is that?
And then we just went off the rails. It was just like we had problems ourselves.
Well, you got your school, you got your mom and dad going, what the heck are you doing? You're out playing till 1 a.m. and you're 12.
Yeah. No, well, the other thing was like, this is the 80s.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Hello.
So
there were no drugs around in the 80s. There were no drugs, and drugs totally only went to people over 21.
So for us being like a thrash metal
your
band.
Kids might hear this.
Yeah,
so
it's all good. They know the stories already. Too many times. But, you'd walk up the Sunset Strip from the Whiskey to the Roxy to the Zari's and, and do that whole thing. And
you're like, Mom, I'm fine. I'm going to make it to class and everything's going to be okay.
I used to leave Friday night and come home Sunday night.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like my mom never worried about me because
you're a good kid.
I never drank. I never did drugs.
You're a smart
it was
kid.
just kind of, but I took care of everybody else.
Which becomes a burden in and of itself.
Yeah. So we had our moment in the sun, and it was the first time we walked into a studio.
Oh, where did you go?
Some shitty fucking place in downtown. And
I don't even know what that would have been in the 80s. I'm
oh
scared
man,
to find out.
it was like the old Pabst Brewery off the 5.
And by the way, those of you who think downtown LA is an oasis now, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
So we went into the studio, and they had like an MCI desk.
Okay.
And the guy was smoking like a chain,
Oh, yeah.
And we set up and we started playing, and I was just like, And at this point, the drummer from Armored Saint actually did our demos.
Oh, cool.
And he turned me on to the 4-track.
Was it a Tascam?
Tascam 4-1.
Yeah, that was the first thing I ever worked on, and then I ended up using it as a preamp for my stereo.
Yeah. So he kind of got that ingrained in me a little bit when we did the demos at his house. And then we actually saved our money and went to a studio, and I was like, what I realized then was that I was more interested in what was happening in the control room than I was in the studio.
Very cool.
And it kind of fucked me up.
Well, it would have messed your band up.
That was having its problems anyways, but it was that moment of like, I asked a million questions. I know I annoyed the shit out of the guy.
Well, they didn't really have schools then. I mean, I think they had Soundmaster and give a shout out to the
Recording
school.
Workshop.
Yeah, LA Recording
like that,
Workshop. They had the Dick Grove School of Music, which is more, I taught there actually, which was more of a music school. But it was learn on the fly.
Yeah.
Really. You know, it still kind of is, even if you come out of a school.
I mean, my biggest thing was like, I kind of was like, okay, well, maybe I got to go to school for this.
Right.
And I think this is like, this is like 87 or something like that.
Oh, man, I was deep in it by then.
And I went to one class.
At Travis?
No, at UCLA.
Oh, okay.
It was a UCLA extension.
Okay. We do their classes all the time.
Bruce Sweeting was there.
God, amazing. Oh, how cool is that?
So I walked up to him after the class and I said, Bruce, pleasure. I mean, you got to think about what time this is.
At that time,
he
right?
He was the fucking man. Like,
dude,
it was like.
Yeah, God rest in peace, still the man.
Yeah, no bigger of the men. No bigger than that.
Yeah.
And I go, how do you really get into this business? And he was like, with this big baritone voice, kid, not through this.
Yeah.
And I was like, really?
Get a job at a studio.
He was like, you're not going to learn. You got to learn on the job. And I was like, no school's going to teach you how to deal with people.
Yeah,
and
true.
The next day I quit school.
Yep.
I made a shitty resume and went everywhere looking for a job.
Well, who hired you?
Well, 2 people.
Okay.
Cherokee.
Okay, great. Oh, well, good and bad.
Good and bad.
Yeah.
We all know the stories.
Yeah.
I think I lasted there 3 months.
Okay.
It's kind of the cutoff for most people there.
Yeah.
And then Studio 56 first minute.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And then I just realized.
Was Dave DeBow there? Would he have been at 56? I can't remember.
I don't remember either. I remember it was Trial by Fire. And they realized I didn't know anything.
I wonder if Kirschenbaum owned it then. David Kirschenbaum owned it.
That was right. It was Kirschenbaum.
And it was right next to the.
By the Adobe.
Yeah.
Adobe Cafe.
Yeah.
So it's,
like Lucy's.
Yeah.
Lucy's on Melrose.
Yeah, Melrose, yeah.
Yeah. By the Nicodell. Both of which are not there now.
Yeah.
No, Lucy's is there, but the Nicodell's.
Yeah. So
by Paramount.
Yeah. So basically just kind of jumped in, and didn't know anything. And the David Brown, I don't remember David. You remember Tech David Brown?
Yeah.
David Brown was like, you can't work in the studio unless you know how to wire.
Yeah, you got to solder.
And he kind of taught me a little bit here, the tech side of things, which is, again, the training was different back then.
So crucial, though.
Yeah. You know, you got to know what's going on. Like,
yeah.
How things work a little bit.
Yeah.
And then after that, I just started like...
Signal flow just made sense to you?
Yeah, it did.
You know, there's a statement that I've made a couple times of a lot of people that I've worked with in my life. They, you know, their tenacity wins out and their sheer working at a studio day in and day out and learning. Some people learn slower than others. And then there's other people that just kind of like come out of the womb having a natural artistic talent for it. And I always say that Jerry Finn was one of those people.
Yeah, Jerry was
when I worked at Grove, he would be like, you know, reading manuals for gear he'd never seen.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, why are you reading that manual now? And he goes, so that when I get my hands on this H3000 harmonizer, I'm going to know how to use it. And I would say, honestly, that you're one of those people too, because I've watched you your whole career, and it's definitely as natural to you as breathing, I would say. Okay, that's going to make me have some kind of attack. Anyway, but the light was strobing. But yeah, I think, and you know, the journeyman people, no less talented, but a different kind of talent. Yeah. And so for you, it's just instinctive, and your love of music, I think, shines through everything you touch. Yeah. I'm a huge fan, by the way,
thank you.
of your work. So yeah, that's it. I mean, you do a Cherokee trial by fire.
Oh yeah.
You know, and the Robs, amazing guys. One thing to mention about the Robs was they had a band of their own when they were young, and then they became studio owners. And Cherokee was an incredible studio in West Hollywood.
First A-Range I worked on.
First A-Range. And I was just about to say that the engineers at Trident Studios in London, my understanding, and I should talk to Bruce Robert about this, was that all of the Trident A-Ranges that were shipped to the United States were built for them and built for Cherokee. Yeah. I have one here.
Yeah.
That was at Cherokee.
I was just on it.
Yeah, you were. That's right. You worked this weekend. I forgot. Yay. But special. Yeah. I mean, special, and give them kudos for recognizing cool electronics and kind of introducing us to that. You know what I mean? And they were innovators in a lot of ways.
And in a weird way, the reason why I wanted to work at Cherokee, because they had a lot of British engineers working there at the time.
Yeah.
And I was... Cause
I'm British Invasion girl.
I'm a metalhead.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so Iron Maiden, all that shit was my stuff. Saxon, you know.
Saxon.
And
I don't even know who Saxon is.
No, it's a band from the 80s.
Okay.
And I would stare at the record cover, right? And then look at the back cover, and it would be produced by Tom Allen or, you know, Gus Dungeon or, you know, Hugh Padgham.
Hugh Padgham.
Just these guys who were like, oh,
T. Chad Blake.
Yeah, it was crazy to go, because I loved European music. I loved the way it sounded. And I could hear the difference. You know, back then, you heard the difference between London, L.A., and New York.
Yes, I would agree. I think it was interesting. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to watch it, but you would dig it. There's a DVD called The Language of Music, and it's about Tom Dowd. Oh. And Tom Dowd's sort of the famous, you know, we all stand on the shoulders of giants. And Tom is certainly one of them, rest in peace. But he said that he went to Abbey Road and he was frustrated because they were still using like 3- and 4-track machines, and we were using 8 tracks here. Yeah. He was like, "Come on, dudes, get it together."
Yeah. So it was interesting because I wanted to. I kept on hearing about a Trident console. I had heard of that, and I also heard about a Neve. But you know, I mean, you listen to...
Also British. All the console manufacturers are British just about. An API, don't be affronted by that. Yeah. We love APIs.
Yeah, of course.
And any other American-made product, we support you. But in my career, it's Neve, SSL, Trident.
You know what's crazy? I was in Rockfield. In Monmouth, like just outside of Wales.
Wow.
Doing Supergrass.
You know, I'm Welsh.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My ancestors, all 4 of my grandparents are from Swansea. And I've never been there.
And Kingsley, the owner of Rockfield. Yeah. I was doing Supergrass. We were there for a few weeks, and I was looking at the rack, and I was like, "What the fuck are those?"
Was it all American stuff?
No. It was this lime green Neves that were like, you know, the 8 rack.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never seen these. Right?
And they weren't like 31105s or something.
They were some weird number. I've never seen them.
Interesting.
They were a tube version of Neves.
Oh, how cool is that?
It was so...
But probably it was from a console...
prototype.
Oh, really?
That Rupert made.
Well, you know, we're sitting in Studio 2 at East West, of which I am very blessed to be the manager of East West. I'm so lucky. But we're sitting in Studio 2, and the console in Studio 2 is an older Neve. And when Rupert was still alive, he came by and he autographed the console in Studio 2 and Studio 1 for me. And he told me, and I don't know if this is true or not, but he told me that the console here, he built it in a church in Sussex.
Wow.
And I've been to Sussex, and I was like, really? That's crazy. Yeah. But what an innovator.
It was weird because then...
Lime green, curious.
10 years later?
Yeah.
I saw him. I don't even remember.
Oh, you saw Rupert?
Maybe it was at an AES convention or something. And I was like, I got a question for you. And he was like, yes. And you know, very proper.
Yeah, he's so proper. I love it.
And he was like, I saw these lying. He was, stop. And I was like, at Rockfield? He was like, yeah. He goes, I've asked Kingsley to trash those things. Those are a piece of shit.
Oh,
he said it exactly. He goes, I hate those things. And it was just funny how much he was like.
Dude, he's so honest.
He was like.
So honest.
There's so much distortion, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that sounds great.
But it was probably perfect for what you were doing with Supergrass.
Yeah. It was just so funny, though. It was just like, he just hated that.
You know, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast to begin with was, you know, there's so many of the people that we know and love, and I wanted to sort of have something to remember and to capture all these wonderful people. But he's one of them. I mean, man, I wish I could have sat him down. And I had the great fortune of being around him quite a few times, and his lovely wife, amazing. But, and he left us, I think, last year. He was 93.
We should all be so lucky.
Oh, my God, right? Doing what you love.
Yeah.
So, you get the job. Now, were you Cherokee and then 56 was longer?
No.
Okay.
No, at 56, they realized I was super green.
Oh.
So I just ended up being a runner.
Okay.
You know, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know, and even at Cherokee, I was running. Mm-hmm. But again, everyone at Cherokee never really lasted too long.
Right.
You know, they had such a high turnaround.
Yeah.
And then I went to Lionshare.
Oh, cool.
You know, I was at Lionshare for a little bit, but again, a little bit. That's kind of the thing that happened for me. That was, I think.
That's kind of good, though. Different rooms, different gear.
Well, I started assisting as like a relief assistant. I don't know if you know
this.
Did
I ever hire you? Come on.
No, but I went to Red Zone a couple times. I think it was the 90s at that point.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, our friend Trent, you know, was working.
Yeah. I saw Trent on Saturday.
Yeah. And I just started working around. So when they would burn their assistants out, they were like,
you were like the first freelance assistant.
They were like, you should call this guy Robert because he'll come in and he knows a lot of rooms. So,
dude, what a great thing.
Alan Morphew from Tom from Track Record.
Yeah, Tom Murphy.
Tom Murphy.
Yeah.
Melanie from Stag Street.
Yeah.
You know.
God bless her. Still Stag Street. Still there. I just went there last week. It looked great.
Yeah.
Trent, our friend, is running it.
Yeah.
Or overseeing.
Yeah. And then I even was I even went to Sound City.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then did a couple days there, but you know, they were fine. And it was just this thing. What's the Martin Sound?
Martin Sound. So Martin Sound was Alhambra, right?
Alhambra.
Now, and this is interesting because did the Flying Fader automation get built there?
Yeah, they built it there.
Because I remember the very first time that I had to do that, I was like, wait, I have to go where? I have to drive to Alhambra? But yeah, God bless him.
Yeah. And then George Massenberg had his shop next to Stag Street.
Oh, that's cool.
And he was literally next door.
Oh, I got to get George on here.
And you know, so he would come over and try things in the studio there.
Those of you listening, if you don't know who this is, if you're a layperson, George Massenberg, probably not only an incredible engineer and producer, but what a designer. And one of my favorite things about George is he doesn't suffer fools well.
Yeah.
And he is so smart, but at the same time, very gracious. Yeah. He's like half Canadian, half Southern. So I always tease him because I'm Southern. He's from, I think it's I don't know if it's his mom or his dad is from Macon, Georgia.
Yeah.
And because I'm from South Carolina, we always razz each other. But, dude, what a genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, teaching at McGill, I think, still.
Oh, really? Yeah.
In Toronto, I believe.
I mean, he's, you know.
Dude, GML, George Massenberg Labs.
The Complex.
Dude, the Complex, amazing. So I left Red Zone and went to work at Soundcastle, and the manager there had been Dave DeVore. And then Dave DeVore left and went to the Complex.
Yeah.
But amazing studios.
Yeah. So Mad Hatter.
Yeah, Matt Hatter.
You know.
Oh, yeah, Matt Hatter. Chick Corea's studio over in Silver Lake, right by Soundcastle.
It's weird. I made the rounds and got to work on so many different... See, I'm a fan of music. I don't care what it is. If it's good music, it's good music.
You know, I think that's the uniting force through all of us. I would say that I, worked a lot, not worked a lot, but, managed a lot of studios where Rick Rubin was a client. And he would ultimately say that he's just the ultimate fan.
Yeah. I mean, I got this weird client list of people who are like from Jack Johnson to like Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, you're diverse.
Crazy. And I love it. I love it all. I love
You haven't been typecast, and that's kind of refreshing.
Yeah, and I think, I even love, when I was at Mad Hatter, it was Larry Ma.
Oh yeah, so good.
One of my mentors was Bernie Kirsch.
Oh, amazing.
Who did all of Chicks Records, the GRP stuff with like Gambale and all those guys.
We didn't know about Scientology then, or we didn't really care.
Yeah, it was there though.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I left.
Yeah. No, it's and we support freedom of religion for all peoples.
All free.
But yeah, we don't also want anything shoved down our throat.
Love your gods.
Yeah. But don't want anything shoved down our throat that doesn't have anything to do with music.
Yeah.
But I don't know what happened. I think Mad Hatter's physically still there.
Yeah, it is. The church owns it now.
Oh, the church actually owns
their
it.
whole media empire. But
wow.
So I just kind of went around.
I'm telling you, you might be one of the first sort of freelance assistants, because it wasn't really a thing. Like, you went to a studio, you did your time until you wanted to shoot yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you had a boss like me who sort of shoved you out of the nest and said, oh, you're ready to first now.
Yeah.
And I still do that. I still do that all the time. I'm like, look, you've been assisting for 7 years. You need, and I get them firsting work and stuff like that. But the trajectory, though the trajectory is the same, it's different. The opportunity is different because there's less commercial studios. Now, the other positive opportunity, if you're talented, what you couldn't do when we started is you can start your own business and have your own studio in your house, which you couldn't do that when we started because, where were you going to put a large format console in your bedroom?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think we would both agree that artist empowerment's a good thing. Allowing mediocrity to get on the airwaves is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Not learning your chops, not learning what to do.
I think there's good and bad that's come out of that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of artists can now feel the freedom
and do their own demo
and do their thing.
Yeah, I call it artist empowerment.
And feel like they're contributing more than just like listening to someone tell them what to do.
Yeah, and the social media thing, also good and bad, but if you build your own fan base, it's sort of I'm going to say something that's probably politically incorrect, but I always thought payola was an incredibly great thing because a manager, an artist manager, or an A&R guy could go to a radio station and say, "Here, play this Elvis Presley record."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you would get the response from the listening audience, which is basically the same today as social media. You'd get the response from the listening audience, and that fan base would then propel that artist and the request for the song. So in that sense, that's kind of what social media has done.
I mean, before that, it was called independent record promoters.
Yes.
After the payola scandals.
Yeah.
Independent promoters, and then it went to social media. It's just an evolution of everything.
Yeah, it's an evolution. But getting music out, I think the point you're making is getting music out there in front of people and being able to do that without, a suit who doesn't, without a suit who doesn't, understand you or what you're going for. So I think that's a good thing.
One of my biggest clients is Jack Johnson.
We love him so much.
And when he went to get a record deal the first time, everyone turned him down. Yeah. People were like, "Hey man, we don't need another Bob Marley." And I won't say who said that.
That's brutal.
And that person who said that actually regrets it now.
Well, that's a short-sighted thing. Well, that's like the guy that wasn't there the guy that turned down the Beatles when you watched the movie about the Beatles and they played in the Cavern Come? The guy goes, "Oh, they're never going to make it."
Yeah. and so what had happened with Jack was that he had to do it on his own.
I don't know if I really knew that.
And the first label was a small label called Everloving.
Okay.
My friend J.P. Punier and Andy Factor, who used to be
I remember Andy Factor.
Andy used to be at Virgin.
Yeah.
And they started their own small label. And they signed Jack. And they did his first record. And it blew up.
And think about the risk that would actually mean from their standpoint of opening a label, because it takes a lot of money to make a record, even on a budget sense. If I give you favors or the producer does a spec deal or whatever, it still costs money and time. Everybody's money and time. And God bless them.
And so the independence of putting the music out and doing it on your own is great. The problem that happens is no one knows how to take it to the finish line.
Yeah.
Because they spend so much time just fiddling around.
Oh, see, that's the other bad thing.
Yeah.
Artists should, I'm going to say this, and people are going to yell at me. Artists should not self-produce, okay? Because you will keep redoing, rehashing. I even tell my husband this, who's a great guitar player. But you'll just keep rehashing and redo it. Someone again, Tom Petty said, look, I need a producer. I'm the leader of the band, and people need to, people are going to listen to what I say as the leader of the band. But I need someone who's going to say, it's done.
Yeah.
And that Rick Rubin was that for him amongst others. Like, no, that's the take.
Yeah.
That's the one we're keeping, because you can't let go of your baby. You know what I mean? You keep wanting to change the baby.
I work with this band out of New York. They're like progressive, I guess there'll be a jam band to some stuff, but they're more than that.
Right.
And, I've done about 10 years with them. They've done a bunch of records.
What's the name of
Talk.
it? Oh, Talk?
Yeah, Tauk.
Okay.
And over the time of them not knowing, like the first time I worked with them, we were actually across the street at the other building.
United, yeah.
And the first time they came in and did a record there, and as the years have gone by, they've become great producers on their own.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I'm not saying that can't happen.
Yeah, but the funny part is they still can't get it to the finish line.
Yeah.
And nothing on them. I think they're all great. They're all talented. But I watched the progression of it happen.
Yeah.
Because they were pretty young.
Yeah.
When we first started, they were like in their mid-20s, and now they're in their mid-30s.
Yeah.
And,
you got to hire someone to tell you
well,
stop.
The thing is, those guys come in and they send me stuff that sounds great. I'm like, well, where did you record this? Because I did this at the studio.
Nice.
They understand the value of that.
Yeah. God bless.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
And so the stuff they send me, I'm like, this is great. But then when it comes time to actually doing the record, it's like we get in a room and we do it. And they're like, they see the difference. Yeah. They understand, like, there's a third person in there who comes in with the different objective than we have.
Yeah.
Because the keyboard player is like, my shit's great.
Well, and we both know this is what happens. If the leader of the band's a singer, then the vocal's always too loud, and the mix if they're doing
they're
their
an
own
instrumental
thing.
band.
Oh, cool.
So
okay, well, take that out.
Yeah, well, they started collaborating with different singers,
right.
But it was just that thing where it's like they all are very strong, talented, educated musicians. Everything they learned, they all went to like, prestige universities for music. And I said, everything you fucking learned there, forget.
Yeah.
Forget.
Yeah.
Know the rules, but don't.
This isn't about you all being soloists.
Yes, exactly. And they really learned how to like groove and be a band.
Be cohesive as a band.
Yeah. I tell it to bands all the time. Like, I have this crazy story of some guy who hired me to come and see his son's band. And, they send a private jet to pick you up. And,
nice.
And, Phantom picks you up in the
the G5.
Yeah, and then takes me to the house. There's a staff.
A Phantom Rolls Royce. Sorry.
Yeah. The staff is waiting outside.
Oh, nice.
And they're terrible.
Oh God.
And I was like, they're just a cover band. They're young. They're 18 years old. They're like just fresh.
Yeah.
And the dad.
Well, and you have integrity, so at some point you have to say like.
Well, the story gets deep.
Okay.
If you got a second.
No, go. Let's go.
So
that's what this is about.
I'll make it as short as I can.
You do your thing.
So I get there and he like built a stage for them in the house. Like, he built like a studio for them.
God.
And I'm like, okay, they can play. They're not really a band. I said, play me an original. And they're like, well, we haven't written originals. Like, we just play covers. And the dad was like, well, that's what you're here for. I'm like, I'm not that kind of producer.
I'm not a songwriter.
Yeah. I mean,
I guess you could be.
Yeah. I'm like, that's not my job. That's not what I like to do.
Yeah.
There's other way more talented people at that than me. Yeah. And I was like, but my thing is to get a band and make sure that it sounds good and make sure that it feels good. I mean, one of the craziest things I tell people all the time is speakers have no emotion.
Exactly.
They're the flat, I mean, not flattest, but they have no emotion, but somehow we make emotion come from them.
Absolutely.
And we give them life.
Well, I'm a huge champion of engineers, and you know this. Yeah. You guys are the unsung heroes of everything. And to say you're the sixth member of the band is an understatement.
Yeah. So what ended up happening with this band is, the father was very frustrated with me. So I was literally like looking at my phone, go, fuck, I'm supposed to stay here tonight and fly back tomorrow. And I'm like, maybe he can find a hotel. Maybe I can book a flight back. Cause I thought it was just, he actually was upset with me.
Aww.
And he was like, this is like a negotiating tactic. I was like, no, it's not.
I'm being honest with you.
Yeah. And then the kids were great. We talked. We had a great time. He left. He comes back and brings a number on a paper like you see in movies.
Oh, my Lord.
And he was like...
You know, it's not about money, dude. I have my integrity here.
And I was like, I go, buddy, this is...
It's not about money.
I mean, this is a lot of money. And I go, but they need to be in a van. They need to go play shows.
They need to live life.
They need to fucking write songs.
Yeah,
they need to figure it out. Somebody else did the record or went in with them. Someone we know.
Okay.
I won't say who it was.
Okay.
I won't throw them under the bus.
And was it all covers or did they write some new
No,
ones?
they write some new stuff. It was,
okay.
But the guy called me like a year later.
The dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was suing the guy.
See, this is like, oh, God.
And then he was like, why didn't you take these? I asked you, why didn't you do the record? I went, because I couldn't manage your expectations.
Dude, that's fair.
But
that's honest.
I was like, you're paying me to do something, but I already saw that like you weren't listening to my advice. So I'm just going to have to manage your expectations. And at the end of the day, you're going to pay me this huge amount of money and think I'm robbing you.
Yeah, and you're suing the other guy. Let's not talk about the elephant in the room.
And then I told him, you need to drop that lawsuit. I go,
good for
if you don't listen to me, then listen to me now. And he was like, you know what, man? He goes, I get my way all the time. I never listen to anybody. I don't have to. He's rich. He's a billionaire, right?
Oh, wow.
It's like, those guys don't have to answer to anybody.
Right.
You know, but they do.
Well, yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's his kid. So if he has any soul at all.
Yeah. And it was so funny. He dropped the lawsuit.
Oh, good.
And the guy called me and goes,
thank you.
Thank me.
Good.
And I was like, I know sometimes it's feast
tempting.
or famine in this business. It's always feast or famine.
Yes.
So I get it. And I didn't knock him for taking the money. You know, it's like, I get it.
Yeah.
But you knew already that this was not a gig. And we've all done stuff that we're like, I'm not really feeling it, but it's pretty good. And
that's a job.
My thing is, I'm going to make it better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But with that particular situation, I knew I couldn't make it better. And I knew I couldn't make him happy.
Now, I wonder if any of those young guys are still making music.
They're not even a band anymore.
Yeah. Bummer.
I mean, I remember, it's funny you say that because before COVID hit, one of the band members reached out to me and was just like, he had another band. And I was like, oh, would you name it different? He goes, no, we didn't even last 6 months after we made that record. Like, they were in a band. Yeah. They were young kids trying to figure out what they wanted to do.
Well, maybe someone will come out of that fold that will actually have a career. Yeah. I mean, you and I have certainly heard a lot of crazy stories. I mean, one of the most, known ones is, Grohl coming out of Nirvana and being able to do Foo Fighters. But there were others for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to go back to we've kind of skipped over high school, but that's fine. Yeah. You got your foot in the door, you got your first thing. What was your first band as a first engineer?
Oh, it wasn't a band.
Oh.
It was...
Was it a commercial?
No, it was Paul Rothchild.
Oh, okay.
And this came from Cherokee.
Oh, wow, okay.
So it was Christmas.
All right.
And at Cherokee, I was just supposed to be there answering phones.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, literally. Like
opportunity knocks, by the way, if you're listening.
Paul Rothchild walks in with the tape under his arm. And it's like, where's Mike? And I was like, there's nothing on the schedule for anyone being here.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. He goes,
I have a vocal overdub.
Oh, wow.
With the singer coming in an hour.
Oh, shit.
And he was like, and this is when you had pagers.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Beepers,
Yeah, I had them.
And I'm fucking beeping everybody. No one's picking up.
Yeah, they're sleeping.
And again, I already worked around a little bit, so I knew how to line the machine. I already knew how to do it. It's like, and I was
you just stepped up?
I stepped up.
Good for you.
And I was like, okay, let me do this. I got the machine, lined the machine. He wanted his M49 up.
Set up the mic.
Brought his own mic.
Brought his own mic, okay.
Set it up. And he didn't tape operate. He just, I was like, so I ran the machine. We did the vocal. I comped the vocal.
Good for you.
Did the whole thing. And he was like,
that's balls out.
He was like, great job.
Oh,
and he was like, but I'm going to fucking talk to Susan.
And find out why.
Dee's wife, Susan Donaldson.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. And I got called in.
Dude, and they gave you a hard time?
They fired me.
Fuck that.
Yeah. And the only person who was super nice was Jeff.
Yeah.
And Dee was kind of pissed, and I was just like, and I said to him, hey man, if those are the kind of people you are, I don't want to work here.
Well, and let's just really look at it. I mean, if that happened, first of all, that wouldn't happen under my watch because I'd answer my phone. But, you know, if it happened in the middle of the night, I would, and recently something happened where one of the kids got offered an opportunity that I would not have necessarily put this kid up for, but he took it anyway, and thank God it went all right. Yeah. Because it would have been my reputation had it not gone all right. But again, I think it's righteous that you stepped up.
Yeah.
You know?
What happened was Paul called me a week later and was like, I can't believe they fucking fired you.
Oh, very cool of him.
And he was like, I'm going to get you a gig. And I was like, really? He goes, I have a friend who, you did a great job on the vocals. I have a friend who needs the same thing. He needs someone to sit there with him and punch vocals and comp vocals for him and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay. He goes, make sure you bring an invoice. I was like, what the fuck is an invoice? I went to fucking Thrifty and bought like an invoice book.
Oh, I love it, dude. So you could get paid.
So I could get paid. And it was like the guy, we sat there and we chatted, and he liked my vibe. And I sit there and we punch vocals, and, you know, it's like we comp it. And so Rothschild gave me my first actual gig.
God bless him, dude.
And it's like, you know, I made like, you know, it was like, I was making $100 or something like that, you know, whatever. It didn't matter.
You know?
And we were doing late night sessions. Like, it was like he had a job, but he was coming in like at 8 o'clock. And
yeah, that's a thing that I don't miss. And I think something we're definitely going to talk about while we're talking today. Robert and I were talking before we started doing the show. It's like, you know, the 24-hour day, it still happens a lot. And when I worked at Soundcastle, in that world, in that gangster rap world and in that early hip hop world, it was very, very normal to have things go overnight, and, you know, with or without drugs, just to go until the point of exhaustion. And it never has ever made sense to me. Why would you? I mean, I get that you get inspired, and I get that you're on a roll, but why would you want to do, like, I think the longest I ever did when I was learning how to be an assistant, I think the longest I ever worked was like 38 hours straight. Dude, I didn't know my name. Yeah. I mean, that's when you make terrible mistakes and you're tired. So I always, as a boss, and it happened this weekend. I had a couple really long sessions, but the second I'm made aware, I'm juggling and scrambling to try to replace them so that people aren't exhausted. I don't get that exhaustion game.
Yeah, I stopped doing that a while ago. I was just like, I ain't playing this game.
Well, it'll kill you. Yeah. It'll make you sick.
You know,
a lot of people, we've lost a lot of people from either drugs or just simple health.
Me and Ed Journey had the same management for a while.
Oh, okay.
And so Ed became a later friend. Like
yes. What an incredible, no longer with us, but one of the best people on the planet.
So I saw him when he was at the Village.
Oh, yeah.
And I had put some weight on.
Yeah.
Because
you look great now.
It's like pizza at 11
See, what
o'clock.
are you going to do? You're sitting in a chair for 14 hours a day.
And Ed came to me and said, hey, man, put some weight on.
Shit.
And I was like...
Well, and he struggled, too, with his weight.
Sure. But no one else ever told me that. And someone who's been doing it for that long had been like, dude, you just got to take care of your health.
You got to get salad. Got to get salad and go to bed.
Yeah, but it was that thing of like, I couldn't go to bed. I did fucking 12 hours, 13 hours. My head is still going, fuck, was that chorus perfect?
Oh, dude.
You know, I wouldn't go to bed for 4 more hours after that.
I think what sets you and people like Ed Cherney apart and kind of culls the herd is the caring. Because, I mean, if you're not, I always tell my staff this, and I think you'll agree with me, if you're not nervous going into the session, you don't care.
Yeah, you don't.
You know, and it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. Yes, you develop a certain amount of confidence in your ability and you understand what you're doing. But if you don't...
You're building a car from scratch every time.
Dude, it's insane. Yeah. It's one of the most unique jobs in the world because it's such a mix of art and science. You know, it's so highly technical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So God bless Eddie. So did that sort of set you on a track to looking out for yourself a little bit more?
It did. And then unfortunately he passed.
Yeah.
Not much longer after that.
Yeah, he died. You know, he died of cancer. And I remember, there's a picture of him in my office actually. But I remember him saying to me, he went and he had some back problems and he got an x-ray for his back or his knee or something crazy like that. No. And they saw something on the film And Eddie used to smoke like a lot of us did. I mean, I haven't smoked for a very long time, but you know, the things that you do when you're young catch up with you. So if you're listening to this and you think that you're superhuman or you're, you know, invincible, take my word for it. You know, you're not.
I mean, I look at this, I started when I was 15 or 12, really. Yeah. And I've never had a job.
Good for you.
I mean, I'm 50-something years old
Good
now.
Good for you,
we'll say.
dude.
But
dude, I'm 64. I don't even know where it went.
You're about 10 years older now.
Dude, I don't even know where it went.
And it wasn't till, again, just kind of like, I was like, oh yeah, I got to get my shit together a little bit, you know?
Well, and you have a wife and a family and a lot to live for. And I think that, you know, the rock and roll lifestyle, it eats you up and chews you up and spits you out.
Yeah.
I mean, although, back to our British artists who you and I both love.
Yeah.
Some of them, when they get sober, they lose their musical edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I look back on, and I'm not promoting drug use, but I look back on like Clapton when he was with Cream, you know, and then, or anyone, not to specifically call anybody out. It could have just been the time in their life. They were more, you know, had different creative, you know, flow, whatever. But then you look back and you go, you know, you were better when you were high.
I mean,
I hate to say that.
I assisted
in the zone, right?
Glenn Johns and Andy Johns.
Oh, Andy, my favorite.
And Andy,
I miss him so much.
Andy was insane.
Dude, he's a genius. Dude, he did Sticky Fingers when he was 19.
The two different brothers.
Oh, I know.
You know, it's just crazy.
Oh, I got in the middle of that, actually. That's a funny short story. And Glenn, if you listen to this, know that I have nothing but admiration and respect for you. And so I was managing, and Glenn, it was when I was here at 6,000 when it was cello, and Glenn came in to do a session, and everyone was like, you know, the Glenn stories. He's a taskmaster.
Yeah,
you know, he was absolutely wonderful. He was actually very, very cool. And I became friends with Andy separately and unrelated. And Andy used to live by me in Studio City. And then he started coming to my house like for barbecues and stuff. And I couldn't believe it because I'm such a geeked out fan of his stuff, you know. And we became really good friends. And toward the end of Andy's life, to Glenn's credit, I reached out to Glenn and I said, you know, Andy really needs you. I said, I know you don't know me and you have no reason to listen to me. Yeah. I said, but I saw him yesterday and you know, he needs you and he needs your help. He is struggling. You know, like some people that we know, like an injury happens and then someone starts taking opioids for pain. And the next thing you know, you're addicted to opioids. And if you like to drink like Andy did, that's a bad lethal combo, you know. And I don't know if it probably had zip to do with me. But what ended up happening, and I'm pretty sure it did happen, is that Glenn reached out to Andy prior to his death, and I think that there was some kind of because they were kind of estranged, and I think there was some kind of positive thing that happened. Good. So hopefully, if I had something to do with that, I hope that I did. But I mean, Andy, dude, let's talk about Andy Johns, dude.
So I did a session with him at Track Record, right, and he was fucking pinning the SSL.
Oh yeah,
just like
yeah.
He comes to me that night, and he was like, Robert, I have a request. And I was like, what's that? He was like, I don't want to hear the meters tomorrow.
What does that even mean?
And I was like, I got it. So I forgot the tech who was there. I was like, hey man,
just
you got to figure out how to
turn them off.
You got to figure out how to turn the meters off.
Yeah.
It wasn't the SSL they had that time. They had a different console in that room. Ah, shit, I don't remember.
Doesn't matter.
And I was like,
how do you do?
And he was like, what? And I was like, you got to figure it out because he's going to come in tomorrow and he's going to be pissed if he hears those. Because it was like he was hitting everything. So it was like click, 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 click. Yeah. The stereo bus was click, click, click. And, you know, it was just like, you know.
Dude, and I have a question. Does that actual clicking get picked up in the recording?
No.
Probably not.
No, but it's like.
Annoying.
It's annoying in the room.
Yeah.
You know. And because everyone would walk in and go like, what's that clicking sound?
Oh,
like,
God.
You're hearing music and he listened loud.
Dude, so loud.
And then we're hearing clicking sounds that he didn't want to hear it anymore. And I was just like, you got to figure this out, man.
You got to help me out.
Next day he came in, hit play, no clicking.
Dude, God bless that tech.
He just looked at me and went.
Nice. I have a funny Andy Johns story. I actually have many, some of which I cannot tell, but this is a pretty good one. And this was told to me. This is borderline hearsay. So if you listen to this and you know the real story, feel free to challenge my recollection. But it was when this was, I think it was probably when it was Western, but it might have been when it was Ocean Way. And the story was that Eddie Money was here working, and that Andy, I think Andy was either working with Eddie or he was working on another project, and they were both really drunk, really high, and they were in the hallway outside Studio 3 trying to pee into Heineken bottles. And so they were in the hallway, and around the corner comes a Christian children's choir walking around the corner. And, you know, Andy was not a diminutive guy. This guy is like 6'5", big guy. You know, and then supposedly turns in mid-pee to these kids, and they all run screaming. That could be total BS, but I believe it because it sounds like something
Andy.
Yeah. It sounds like something Andy would do. I mean, you look at these people, and back to kind of when you started out, and you were saying like you look to the British producers and stuff like that. I mean, like everyone here, everybody was winging it, man. I remember Jeff Emmerich told me a story. Again, rest in peace, incredible engineer who was the Beatles' early engineer. And Alan Parsons has some juicy stories too. But he said that he got in trouble at Abbey Road because he was doing things differently than the techs at the time would let him do, and with mic placement and stuff like that. And the song Across the Universe, he said he put mics around the room in a circle, and that he put John on a swing. And that he pushed him. Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but it said he swung around the room and was singing while he was moving in this circle. Yeah. But point being, innovation comes when someone tells you can't do something. You know what I mean? And you go, wait a minute. You know, the Tom Dowds, the Jeff Emmerichs, the Bruce Swedins, everybody who was just, and, you know, taking stuff from broadcasts like Tom Dowd did. You know, he was a physics major in the 30s. Yeah. Said he went back to college after he was working at Atlantic and was going to go back to school for physics. And he said they were teaching stuff from the 30s. And he said, this isn't true. That's not what's happening now. You know, they just created the bomb and all this other stuff had happened. He said, I'm going to go back and work at Atlantic. And so, but they took broadcast consoles and modified them. And almost everything I think we use today would probably, not what we use today, but originally came from broadcast. Because consoles didn't exist. Yeah. You know what I mean? Other than a radio station. Yeah. And the BBC, a lot of all those cool people, dude, that were doing that. And thank you, all of you.
Standing on the shoulders of
giants.
Innovators and giants.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you do the thing with Paul Rothschild, and then who was the friend and what did you do? What was the invoice for? Do you remember?
Artist was a guy named Kirk Miller.
Okay, that's familiar.
And it was just for vocal comping.
Okay, got it.
You know, at the end of the day, he did a whole record. We did the whole vocal comping. And
have you ever edited 2-inch?
Yeah.
That was the thing when I first started. I have my 3 older brothers, and 2 of them are engineers, and my brother Steve, who I give all my credit to, who I helped when he had a studio at the old Kendon, where Red Zone was. He had Take One. And I never was really an engineer, but I would just help him. And I remember just the commitment, like editing 2-inch, it was like, it was not like Pro Tools now. No. It was you had to commit.
I mean, in a weird way,
I think it was better. Okay.
I come from a different time because I made that transition.
Okay, you did.
From the 80s.
All right. Yeah, you did.
Like, all we did was cut tape. Mm-hmm. If we needed to check if an edit worked, we would lay the drums on the 2-track. Yeah. And cut the 2-track first before we even cut
the multi-track.
To do a test edit to see if it would work, if it was pushing or pulling. And
my point being here, commitment though.
Commitment, yeah. And then I watched digital
and performance.
And then from like early 90s, 91 maybe, I think is the first time I saw Session 8.
Dude, I bought a Pro Tools rig in 98 when I ran cello and rented it back to the studio. But I remember thinking, like, this doesn't... I thought it sounded like crap. The first Pro Tools.
Yeah, we had the early version of Pro Tools, Session 8, and then it became Sound Tools.
Right, Sound Tools,
And then from there, we started having ADATs and D88s.
Yeah. A lot of those digital formats like the Gen X and the Fairlight. Is Fairlight?
Fairlight was one of them.
A lot of those things. And it was interesting to watch as a studio manager because my side of things would be that these things would need to be archived.
Yeah.
You know, like DATs. Like somewhere there's DATs from cello, you know what I mean? But all that stuff, ADATs, Fairlights, Gen X's, all that stuff. I think Bruce Springsteen was a big Gen X guy. But all that stuff had to be archived. And I remember getting a call from Warner Brothers and them saying, look, we don't know how long these digital drives and these digital things will last. We're going to take everything and put it back to 2-inch. Yeah. So I made a lot of money for a minute there just transferring stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, we still don't know, right? We still don't know what lasts longer. Now we have the cloud. People try to explain the cloud to me.
Every 6 months, I back up. Yeah. I've got I think my first Pro Tools rig was like on a Nubus power computer or whatever. No, it wasn't a power computer. It was like a Nubus, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I still have that first record I did on Pro Tools backed up. And every couple of years, you have to open it up.
Turn on the drive.
Well, no, I don't even, that drive's long gone.
Okay.
I transfer to new drives.
Oh, gotcha.
You know, it's like literally my garage, I had 600 hard drives in there.
Well, you know, now this is something had dinner with Mark Needham last night, and I was talking to him, and I was saying, as a studio manager, there would be times when the studio would close, and I would contact the label, and I'd contact the artists, and they wouldn't come get their stuff. And I had all these 2-inch tapes in my basement when I lived in this house in Glendale, and a water pipe broke. I don't even want to tell you what was in my basement that got destroyed. But it wasn't for lack of trying and calling people to come get their stuff. So Mark and I were laughing because he said, and the artist will go unnamed, but he said he had all of these original, he had tape and he'd put them onto drives, and he had tape and he had drives, and he just got sick of lugging them around, and he kept calling the artist and he kept calling the label, and finally he was just like, screw it. Yeah. And he said he threw a bunch of stuff away. He probably still has a backup.
Sure.
But these were songs that are known.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because why did it end up being, God bless Iron Mountain. Okay. If you're listening to this, trust your producer, trust your engineer, make sure there's 6 copies, but get your stuff and put it into storage. Yeah.
So everything I worked on, I still have. And I transferred them. So I took those 600
I'm sure your wife is loving this.
Oh, yeah. Well, one day I taught my son how to do it. I was like, okay, this is what you're going to do. And those went from those drives to a NAS drive and now to SSD drives. Right. And
I don't even know what an SSD drive is.
It's a solid state drive.
Okay, gotcha.
There's no moving parts, basically.
Gotcha.
And I'm telling you, from a whole wall in our garage now is a box.
Oh, it's so
in
crazy.
my bed, in my extra room. Like it just.
Okay. And by the way, back to the cloud thing.
Yeah.
So if it's on the cloud, aren't there like giant server farms in the middle of Nebraska? Like, doesn't stuff have to be stored somewhere?
Well, farms are funny. If it's Amazon, they have their cloud services, which is AWS, I believe. I don't know. Believe me, I've looked into all this shit.
Of course, because you're fucking genius.
And they'll send, for a few $1,000s, they send you a hard drive. So if I want it, I didn't do this for myself, but because I want the stuff.
Does it look like a briefcase?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's like it comes in a little anvil case,
Wow, cool.
And they send you this drive, you back up all your data on it, and then you send it back to Amazon, and
that's trust.
Connect it to the cloud, and now you have access to all that data, and they back it up again.
Oh,
but
good.
it's a few $1,000s to do it.
But it's a redundant backup.
It's a redundant backup.
Well, that's a positive.
Yeah.
So we've come, again, do we think that digital, and do we think being able to, auto-tune your vocal, have 190 tracks? I mean, is it good?
You know what I did?
Is it bad?
I deleted auto-tune off my rig.
Good for you.
And now fucking Melodyne's there forever because it's embedded in.
Well, or you could do, what you could do? You know how we used to have the dummy fader on the session?
Yeah.
Like the fader that went nowhere?
Yeah, I've done it 1,000 times.
You could have a picture of the logo on the screen for auto-tune, but not actually have the plug-in so that the artist felt a little bit more secure. I mean.
Nowadays, when someone sends me something that's out of tune, I go, I'm not tuning this. You figure it out.
Well, that's really, you're expensive to have to sit there and spend tuning.
I'm not trying to, I'm in the creative mode. I just want to hear the song.
You want to help.
It. Yeah. But nowadays I'm just not dealing with that. And
I know people you can send it to.
Yeah. Well, again, I came up in a weird time.
Yeah.
Because we were
you were me too.
The bridge.
Bridging the gap.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know, I mean, we weren't recording on wire when I was doing it. But,
right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like the transition from, you know.
I still run tape all the time.
4-track, 8-track, 16-track, 24-track. All that shit was gone already by the time I got into this business.
Yeah.
24-track was king.
Yeah.
And then we got into 48.
Yep.
Dig.
Dude, the 32-track Mitsubishi and then the 48-track Sony.
Yeah. And at that point, you know, Pro Tools came in and it still wasn't what it should be. Everyone started using ADATs and D88s because it was that transition of bedroom house, bedroom studio. And we went through a major change with that because...
Well, a lot of people lost their material.
I mean, I remember when O. Henry went down.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and people were like, well, are we running a business from someone's house now?
Yeah.
And the Hollywood thing, the harp, you know, was getting involved, and all that shit was starting to be a problem. I mean, no one knows what that shit is anymore, but
dude, I feel so lucky because I still get to run, you know, a real studio, a real recording studio, and I always point out, and you and I would agree on this completely. Yes, it's okay if you're good, you're good, and ideally, cream rises to the top, and if you can get your music out there, God, somebody will take it to the finish line for you, hopefully, if it's great.
Yeah.
Mediocrity being allowed to rise into the airwaves, that's a bad thing. People thinking that something sounds good when it doesn't, also a bad thing. But the room as instrument, that's the other thing. And you know, when I was a young studio manager, the reason that I ended up in this building is John Porter, the British producer who'd done the Smiths, my dear friend. He changed my life. I have to give him credit because when I was at Soundcastle, he said, hey, I'm working for this guy and he wants to buy a studio and we're going to buy 6000 Sunset. And I knew what this building was. And I was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. But I had also never really been here. And so when I came here and I saw Studio 3, which doesn't have any isolation, you know, I didn't really understand, like, I mean, I worked with baffles and doghouses and stuff before, but I didn't really understand, like, how does that work? And then I'm thinking to myself, well, the Beach Boys made it work.
You make it work.
You know what I mean? And the Mamas and the Papas made it work. I have a question, and I know people listening to this are going to laugh at me. Why are mono records so clear and so much louder? Dude, if you listen to, like, the original mono of that, it sounds freaking amazing. There's
no phantom image.
Oh, okay.
So it's like everything gets summed up, and it just, I mean, mono is, you know, for what all intents and purposes, it's like if you can't hear it in mono, then it doesn't exist. Like, how loud's that guitar?
I mean, we have two ears, so we're stereo.
Yeah,
but
God,
are we though?
Where was I? Oh, that's right. I was in Rockfield
again.
And they were playing me the original Bloomin' microphone techniques.
Oh, wow.
In stereo.
Wow.
Like they had them there.
Right.
You know, Joe Meek used to, at Rockfield, that's where he had his laboratory.
Oh, wow.
And I remember when we were there, Kingsley was like, oh, well, that's the corner Joe used to build all his shit in. And I was like, whoa. And then he was like, there's prototypes there that he never finished. He goes, we never touched it. We left it. It's been years, decades.
Did you dig in?
Oh, yeah, I looked. He was showing me, and it was just like, oh, I don't know what that is. Like, you know, but
why does mono sound good?
Well, the thing is, I went to, God, I forgot. There's this place down here in Eagle Rock, this guy who does transfers. He does a lot of archiving.
Okay.
And he's got this one Tannoy mono speaker, and he played me stuff, and it sounded
amazing,
incredible. Like just the dimension and everything.
Less is more. This is what I'm saying.
I mean, I think it's frequency response at times.
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, one of the things people don't realize is like when you're doing guitar track and then you overdub it and put it on the left-hand side, it's like what you're really hearing is just the difference in the playing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's going there. But if you EQ it a little differently on the left and EQ it a little differently on the right, it creates a different kind of separation.
Right.
You know,
That's so crazy that, you know, I mean, again, I was bitching at someone the other day because Keith was, because they jumped to EQ something before doing mic adjustment, which is so adjust the mic first before you EQ.
Yeah.
But that's so interesting because I think I was trying to find something the other day, and everything's been digitally remastered, and all the mono stuff's been redone, and it's all changed. And I think I had an actual really old LP, and I played it, and I'm like, oh my God, this sounds so freaking good.
Yeah, they're balancing for frequency response and so that it cuts. You know,
I mean, what was the story? I think Giles Martin tells a story about like the Beatles didn't even really hang out for the early stereo stuff.
Yeah, it was the mono was the most important thing, and then they left.
And people went in and just did stuff. So now we're up to 17 speakers with Atmos, and I'm not gonna trash anything. I think that it all has its place. You and I have both seen a lot of multi-channel formats come and go. I don't happen not to have an Atmos room here. I've listened to a lot of Atmos stuff in different environments, and God bless Dolby. And I thought Oro was very cool. Oro was another format that didn't quite make it. That was very, very cool. Kind of like, Beta and VHS. But, it's not, the best doesn't necessarily always win, but I do respect Dolby. And here we are with Atmos, and that's great. I personally find that the immersive experience for multi-channel listening experience, to me it's good with picture. I don't know that, I'm in a car, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna have I have this Dan McCarroll, when he was working for Amazon, brought me in one of the Amazon Echoes, and it's an HD, and it's supposed to be an Atmos Echo. It's in my office now. And so it shoots out your office. I yell at it all day. Alexa, play this, Alexa. But it shoots out your office, and it measures and does some algorithm of the space. But again, this particular thing is not a proper Atmos setup. It's just, it's just.
Yeah, it does some tricks.
It's a box, and it does some tricks. Around, But for me, it really only applies with picture for me. Although, and I got to give Steve Genowick and Nick at Capitol and a lot of these guys. I mean, I listened to Rocket Man early on in Atmos, and I thought it sounded like butt. And I thought that the background vocal was way too prevalent. And I said, has Elton heard this? And they said, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, well, somebody might want to play it for him. You know what I mean? He may or may not go for it. But then I went to Blackbird, and I was in John McBride, the room that was George Massenburg's room. That's an ATC Atmos room. Dude, I cried. It was so moving. And again, I'm not quite sure if that was a Genowick mix or who did that, but whoever actually mixed it, they got it.
I heard that one because I heard the original version first.
Yeah, and I didn't. Did you dig the first one?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I dig the second one. Whoever did the second one.
Yeah, whoever you are, you're freaking genius. See, I cried.
It's funny you say that because I was at Capitol.
When they were first kind of doing it?
No. 2 days before the pandemic hit.
Oh, wow.
A couple days before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
They had a session there. And Genowick was like, hey, man, it's like, I want to play you some stuff. And I was like, okay.
Dude, he's so talented.
And he played me some Marilyn Manson stuff.
Oh, how funny.
And
how
then
timely.
Some Beastie Boys stuff.
Oh, I love the Beastie Boys so much.
And I sat there and I told him, I was like, they're going to hate this.
Yeah.
And he was like, what? And it was like,
but it's not what they intended.
It's not that it's not interesting.
Yeah.
But that little shaker that you're like moving around the room?
Yeah.
That was never supposed to be heard. It was supposed to be felt.
Right.
It's like,
well, and I like audience perspective.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I take issue with this kind of format is I don't want to be on stage with the guitar up my butt. You know what I mean? I want to.
I look at it as like a cookie.
Okay, tell me how it's like a cookie.
You don't want to taste the salt. You don't want to taste the sugar.
Right, you don't want single ingredient.
You want the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You want the cookie. Not the flour, not the water, not the milk. You want the cookie.
Oh, I like that. That's a good way to put it.
And that's my analogy. I said to him, and I said, I'm just telling you because, I worked with Mario C. a bunch for many years.
Yeah, and your friends too.
And I'm like, I go, and Mario did all the Beastie records.
Yeah. I listen to Sabotage all the time.
Yeah. And I sit there and I'm just like, I'm just telling you, like, so even for me, like in the Marilyn Manson one too, I was like, and God honest, Genowick's like, good, I need this feedback. I need to know these things.
Yeah.
His ego is not involved.
I do love that about him. Yeah. He
was just like, I need to know what you think. He goes, that's why I asked you to listen to this.
Yeah. I want to make it right.
Yeah. I want to make sure that, I was like, it's just, again, I think the Atmos thing, again, I've done a couple of Atmos.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to be here for a minute. And I think the thing that's so crazy to me, and I know you're going to laugh, is that we're doing all this and we're putting such care, those about the professionals in the business, the engineers, putting such care into this. And then people are listening to it on earbuds. But the earbuds now, which are the multi-channel, I don't even understand how that's
spatial audio shit.
You know what I mean? Spatial audio shit. I did hear a track that was recorded with Atmos in mind. And it was Beck, and it was Seventh Heaven, and it was 196 original tracks. Now, that's a lot going on.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. Yeah. See, that sounded awesome to me, as opposed to something that was originally mono or even originally stereo. And like you said, you don't want to single out that ingredient. There was, bands playing together. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like the guitar player's playing a note and waiting for the drummer to hit the drums. Yeah. And that's kind of what Atmos did.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to, and again, this is just like,
well, we grow and we bend for these things.
I'm more looking to see like if someone actually makes a Atmos record where it's done
from beginning to
end with the intention of that.
That must have happened by now.
It hasn't, not that I know of.
My stomach just growled on. That's crazy. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, we saw, first there was the quad thing. When we were, you weren't probably even born yet, but there's the quad thing. And then there was, the euphonics console, which came out. And then for me, it always made sense with film. Yeah. Like it always, like you're watching an action scene and there's dialogue and there's Foley and there's music, that I could kind of process and experience it, or like a concert record where you're watching a live show, or rather watching a DVD of a concert. But I remember DVD audio, and I listen to music in my car a lot, so I thought, well, how is that going to work where I'm going to have like the safety brake like up my butt? Like, sure. How's that going to work? And my husband, it's funny, it's usually the wife, but in my house, it's like, man, I'm going to hang these speakers like that. And we have in our house, we have these hardwood beam, like redwood ceilings. My husband's like, you're not drilling into the ceiling to hang speakers. He's not going to put anything anywhere. Yeah. So I'm reduced to like this sound bar. Yeah. You know what I mean? But we will see, the
tree's being shaken, and we'll see where it falls.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always go to Bob. I go to Bob Clearmountain.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's going on?
He's done cool stuff.
And he's been doing the 5.1 thing forever.
Yeah, and he's been doing the Atmos thing, and his Atmos thing is cool, too.
Yeah, and I was just like, what? I literally was like, what techniques are you talking about? And he was like...
Well, because it was the left, right, center thing with 5.1 and trying to figure out what to stick in the back. And now, what is it? I think Atmos is minimally 11.1, or is it minimally 9.1?
I think it's...
But it's 7.1
or 7.
Right, okay, so 7.1, but most of them are 11, 12,
something
15,
like that,
17, something like that.
And there's issues with that. Believe
me.
There
were phasing issues. Absolutely. Can I just say that?
Yeah. I mean,
Like, how's that working?
Yeah, comb filtering, all kinds of shit. And you have to learn how to work around that so that it doesn't do it. Because when I did it, I started going, wait a minute.
Did you get a headache?
Well, I understood, like, because I what happened was, after seeing Genowick, after being at Capitol that time, I was like...
I need to get a handle on this.
I'm like, what is this? Because it was interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in anything that's...
Of course, innovative.
So I was like, okay, I bought the software. I mean, anyone can buy the software.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to play around with this a little bit and see what the binaural thing is.
Right. And I remember the binaural microphone from the 80s.
Yeah. So I played around with it, and I was like, this is interesting. So then what I did was I bought some, I don't remember the speaker names, but I bought like a bunch of inexpensive speakers and set it up in my room.
I'll give a shout out to Cali Audio, because they make some really great stuff. And PMC, of course, very tight with Dolby, great speakers. We're at ATC House. I'm an ATC fan. And John's room at Blackbird is ATC. It's it's the only Atmos room that I've been in that's all ATC. I know there are a couple. But Cali Audio, young mixer here, Jeff Ellis, who he's got an Atmos set up in his room. Because, as a mixer, as you are, people are going to task you to do that. They're going to be like, hey, take this and do this. But did I interrupt you?
No.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just saying it's just one of those things where I need to know what this is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be in this business for 30 years and go, I don't know what that is.
Right, you don't want to close your mind to things.
And I was like, okay, I play with it a little bit, and I was like, oh, there's some very shortcomings of this, and
again, phase.
Yeah,
phase.
Yeah, and then I did this band called the Star Crawlers.
Well, that's a cool name.
Yeah, and they're a local band, and they were like the company, the record label demanded Atmos, and I was like, okay, so this is like recently, this is like a year ago, so I already played with it, I knew it. I wasn't going to make the investment into it, so I went to another Gold Diggers. They have a they have an Atmos room, and I kind of was like, okay, I brought it there and mixed it there.
Lemon Tree's a cool one too.
And they came in, the band was like, it sounds great, but I kept that thing Bob told me. He was like, it's just got to feel like it's powerful from all around you.
Oh, I like that.
You know, front loading stuff.
Again, we're all about emotion.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And it was like, okay. So I would just go back and forth between the stereo mix and the Atmos, and I was like, okay, so we put a little bit more background vocals on the sides, you know, just tiny little things, but I wasn't making shit fly around. Like most people are. I'm like,
yeah, it's like flying around, and
it's like that shit doesn't interest me. You know, I want it to sound like the record, but just expand it.
Well, and it's one thing to sit and listen to, it's one thing to sit and listen to a song, but to have, this was one of the things that happened early on, and I got in trouble. They had the Surround Awards, and this is pre-Atmos. And they gave Elliot Shiner an award for Bohemian Rhapsody. And I love Elliot Shiner. I hold him in the highest regard. But I got in trouble because I went up to present him his award, and I said, I love the stereo version of this song because I love Queen, and I loved it. And then I remembered watching him and Alan Parsons kind of running around the room looking for the sweet spot. And we were in, you know, to their credit, we weren't really in a studio. We were in sort of like a conference room at a hotel. But I was thinking to myself, well, if you have to run around in circles and, you know, I mean, obviously all listening spaces have a sweet spot. Control rooms have a sweet spot. It's usually, you know, the top of your head or your chest or something like that when you're in a studio. But I just thought that just seems so goofy to me. Like, it's just so goofy if you got to run around in a circle, and if you're straining to hear it, aren't you then sort of not really experiencing the emotion of the song? So Atmos, we're open to you. We'll see where you go. I'm sure they'll come along with something else. Yeah. And if nothing else, it's giving people work. Yeah. To remix and to redo catalog and stuff like that. But they're also pulling some shenanigans with that. Oh, dude, I heard some stuff that just sounded terrible. Yeah. So, you know, that'll be what it is, and that's the Suits kind of making some decisions that they don't really need to make. If anybody's listening to this, one thing we want to take away, if you're working at a record company and you don't know how a record is made, I think you should task yourself, if they'll let you hang out on the session. Yeah. You should hang out and quietly observe a session from beginning to end and what it actually takes to capture a performance, to the social skills required to make an artist feel comfortable to elicit performance, and just the technical things that are occurring all around you to get the music recorded and to get, because it's about the song and it's about the song affecting you. Yeah. And that's, I hope that never changes. I've been in a session where, you know, we were at the most delicate moment a person could have. Yeah. You know, and again, when we're in the studio, it's a sanctuary. It's not only a sanctuary, but some of the stuff that I've experienced with certain artists has been life-changing. Yeah. And I was with an artist where he just found out his dad was dying of cancer. Oh. And he literally was like, I mean, you know. Upset. I was crying. He was crying. He's a dear friend. No. And we're sitting there, and this guy walks in, you know, and just like thinks it's funny he just kind of threw his shit in there, inserted himself in a moment that was just like, and then I had to stand up and go, hey man, can we go outside for a second? And he was like, what's good for you? And I was like, I told him, like, this is not the time, dude. Yeah, like, this is not that time. And he didn't, to his thing, he didn't know. He didn't know. Yeah. I understand that, but that's why I try to keep visitations at studios to a minimum. I do come in and say hi sometimes, just because I love you. The staff and people is different. Yeah, because artists usually expect that. Well, and I know the protocol. Yeah, but you know, it's that thing. But and again, there is times when it's like, and artists don't want to be watched by the now. Record company guy, I'm sitting here telling you to do this, so you got to find the right artist to do it with. Sure. Yeah. Because artists don't want to be under scrutiny, which is why, and it's interesting to me now because when we were coming up, there were record companies that owned studios, like Warner Brother owned Amigo.
Yeah.
And,
oh my God, Amigo.
And I remember that. And it didn't really work because the artists didn't like the record company executives kind of breathing down their neck. Now it's full circle back again where they all have facilities, or mainly writing rooms probably, and Atmos playback rooms. But it's still, I think, you know, if you are on that side of things and you are working for a label and you actually care and you actually want to help artists, you know, give them what they need to create and get out of the way.
Yeah. I've seen some amazing A&R people come in and do things that I was like, I've seen them almost get in trouble.
Oh yeah,
from
me
things
too.
that they have done for artists that I worked with.
But I respect that because then you're putting that on the line.
Absolutely.
And then you actually care about the person that's making the music. So, what's next for Robert? Like what we talked about Atmos, we talked about this and that, and I know you're always working with new bands. If someone wants to hire you, what do they do?
Who do they call? I don't have a website. I don't have a manager anymore.
I'm kind of anti-social media, but I got to change that because I want to promote this podcast.
Yeah, I just kind of like after a couple of years, this funny experience I had with I won't say who, but
a manager.
Not the manager, but an artist and a producer.
Okay.
When we were at a party, and then the manager that we know pulled up, and he cuts out of a Mercedes AMG, right?
Yeah.
And the other guy's car comes up, and it's a Toyota Corolla.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Am I doing something wrong that my manager's driving a Mercedes AMG?"
Interesting.
And I'm not. And I was like, well, first of all, I would never buy that for a car for sure, because I think it's, you know, it is what it is.
Little poser car.
You know, and I was like, I go, dude, you got to understand something. He's got 20 people on his roster.
Yeah, he's making money from everybody.
You're just one of 20.
Exactly.
And if you're not hot or doing anything at the moment, then...
And they're not, and they don't get you, they're not employment agencies.
No.
I mean, mad respect, got a lot of good friends that are producer, engineer, managers, again, with integrity, who put themselves on the line and are the buffer between the label and the producer, engineer. Get him the money he deserves, get him the points he deserves, you know,
but that doesn't exist anymore. Points don't exist anymore.
Really? That's not a thing?
I mean, for what?
Yeah. You're right.
You're going to get streaming.
Streaming, yeah.
You work on that.
Yeah.
You're not getting writers if you didn't write the song.
Right, yeah.
So it's
write
like,
a word, get a third.
Yeah. And it's like you can't equate 1 billion streams into like making a living.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and everybody bags on Spotify. I consulted for Spotify for a while for the facility they were building downtown. They built this cool studio, and I didn't work on the technical side of things, but I did see, and I was clear on that model. If you think Spotify is holding on to the money, they're not. Yeah. The gray box, as we call it in the industry, ultimately look to your label and look to the publishing agreement that you originally made for your publishing, because no one could have seen streaming coming.
Sure.
You know, and that will change, and people will get more money from it as it is monetized, et cetera, et cetera. And God knows I want the artists to get all the money they can get. But the quote unquote gray box, if you want to look at something, audit your label.
Yeah.
Audit your label and find out where your publishing is. There are famous artists that you and I both know who had to fight their labels to get even their writers for 10 years. You know, I'll tell you this off microphone, but it's just, you label people out there. It's one thing to make money. It's one thing to keep the machine rolling, but don't forget who actually makes the music. Yeah. And now AI is coming into play, and you've got people saying, oh, you know, AI is great, and this is great, and this is, you know, it's going to be awesome. You know, obviously AI can only take from what we've created and the data that it's got access to, right? But I don't want that. Yeah. I want artists to make music. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's
going to happen.
It's evolution.
Yeah, it's going to happen. So we got to get better stuff for the AI to pull from, I guess.
Well, the one thing an AI can't do is feel something.
That's what I mean.
And again, sitting with an artist who writes a song, and it's, you know, again, the same
eliciting
artist,
emotion.
The same artist I was talking about when his father found out he was dying. He wrote a song that night about it, and an AI can't do that unless you tell it.
Right.
And then there's so many things in the song that are so personal that, now does anybody know? Does people react to that? But I've seen this artist play in front of 100,000 people and sing this song,
and people cry,
and people are crying.
Yeah,
yeah. It's like, and it's one of those things where you're just like, this is emotion.
This is real.
Yeah,
this is real, and that's where the fulfillment. For me, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a creator, so for me, I'm just sort of an administrator. But I was talking to Paula the other day, and I speak in terms of I will retire someday, and I don't have one of the things that's the podcast is going to be great because I'll have that for my memories. Yeah. But I said, you know what? It'll be enough for me. I'll be sitting in a oyster bar, hopefully in South Carolina, somewhere on the coast, and a song will come on, and I'll know that I booked it, or that I helped that artist, or I helped that engineer or producer, and I'll know. Yeah. And that'll be enough for me.
Yeah. And my thing is when it gets, I still love this.
Dude, I love music so freaking much.
And like, I want to own my music.
Yeah.
Right. So I have, I'm not a hypocrite. I have Apple Music. I pay it for $15
I listen
a month.
to Spotify.
I have Spotify.
Yeah.
But I go to HD Tracks, which is a website where you can buy high definition audio.
So then the artist gets some money.
Yeah. And I buy, how many times I've bought so many records over the years?
Wow.
I want to own Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, see, I like physical too. I've been buying a lot of LPs lately. And people tease me because I also buy DVDs for movies.
But you know what? That's the thing too, because I'll give you an example. You got Netflix, you got all these cable companies that make deals with these independent production companies.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you can't find something.
Yeah, there's no hard copy.
Well, they don't even want to stream it because they haven't made their deal, re-up their deal. So it's like, you like I have, a cable company that like says every fucking month I see something going like, oh, well, you're losing this channel.
Right. Yeah.
It's like we have, and we're like, why? And what it is they can't come to an agreement on a deal.
Yeah, Spectrum had a whole thing with Disney recently that they came to some resolution.
And I'm like, fuck that. I don't want it. Music. Someone asked me in this interview one time, they asked me, they were like, you've done some interesting music, South American, Brazilian, the whole thing. And they're like, what's the thing about music that you'll probably, what is it about it that you'll miss? I mean, what, when you're done, I go, no, I'm not going
to be done.
I'm not going to be done. But the one thing that I think about every once in a while is that one day I'm going to die and I'm never going to hear music again.
Dude.
That bums me out.
Okay. Well, I'm not particularly religious, but I am spiritual, and I'm hoping that in whatever consciousness, if we do go on, now maybe we go out like a light bulb, I don't know. Interesting. At the light flickered when I said that. Or maybe we go into some other realm or dimension. I have a theory that, like, how cats can see spectrums of light that we can't see, or other dimensions. I'm hoping we go into another dimension, and I'm hoping in that dimension that there is some oral component and that we hear, because I love music so much. That's what, that kind of wraps it up. We love music, we love music, and Robert's going to keep making music. And since he doesn't have a manager, and if you want to hire Robert, I guess you could call me.
Yeah, you can. Or I'm on Instagram.
There you go.
I have my number there. I have my Gmails on there.
Cool. Yeah, he's not unreachable. Real quick before I let you go, and we're going to wrap up, but real quick, I was going to say it, and I respect you so much, and I agree with you 1,000,000% on what we're talking about here. I look forward to listening to music when I wake up every day. But, man, I just forgot my train of thought. I forgot what I was going to ask you. Basically, I wanted to quit before we leave off. The collaboration with Tyler Bates.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I'm such a huge fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And I know he didn't do the last one.
Well, we did John Wick here.
Yeah, John Wick here, right? So, and I went to see it in the big theater. Again, try to support the theaters, try to support everybody. And I listened and I heard what you had done, and I was so excited. Yeah. But what a genius. What a genius supervisor, whatever. Tyler, I went and bought the CDs of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies so that I could listen to them in my office. Yeah.
I mean, Tyler,
dude, he's such a genius.
Tyler and me, he's my son's godfather.
Oh, cool.
We go back a long time.
Oh, yeah. See, and I don't know if I think I met him through you.
He was from Chicago. He came out here like everybody.
Is he a musician?
Yeah, he's a guitar player.
Oh, nice.
He was in a band called Pet. They got signed to Atlantic Records.
That's actually familiar.
It was I recorded and was co-producing that record.
Is that how you became friends?
That's how we met.
Oh, okay.
And long story short, it just imploded. Just like most bands, bands we did one record, and then, actually it was an imprint for Tori Amos, Igloo. She had her own little imprint.
Oh, I remember that.
And we did a record with her, for her, and it was a whole thing. And that's where he kind of started. And then he was like, the first movie we did together was a Roger Corman, shitty, low budget
cool
thing.
Director though.
Yeah, but the record was great, but then we started working on other stuff, and he just started becoming. And again, I went in my direction of just keep on making records.
Music supervision to me is such if I was going to change anything, I would have gone in that direction. Because loving music as much as I do, but you have to be like a music historian, and like George Drakoulias also freaking amazing.
Yeah, George has been around
and coming from a producer, background.
Yeah, the crazy thing with Tyler was like, we'd go and we'd make $400, and then we would go and eat or do something, and then during the time of him starting, he was like, "Hey man, like I got this one independent movie that's pretty cool. It was called The Last Time I Committed Suicide. It was a Keanu Reeves, another movie with Keanu Reeves and
I love
him. James.
Nice guy.
Live jazz record. And
cool.
We went to Chicago, and he goes, I didn't write anything down. We're gonna improvise to the screen.
Oh shit.
And it was so weird because
was he playing everything, or he just hired the players?
No, he hired some players, but he always plays with them.
Gotcha.
And I remember they had this, the film on the wall, and how many jazz records I got offered after that?
Oh, I'm sure.
It's crazy.
It probably sounded rad.
It was like, and the blueprint for that was, oh God, what was the movie where they Kansas City?
Yeah.
When they had all the live musicians, and it was all live, all done the same thing. And Tyler just has this way of thinking, and
dude, he's so creative.
The crazy thing was that while he was doing that, he was still painting houses.
Yeah.
And he was like
just trying to make a living, trying
to make a living, and then that got bigger. The next movie got bigger. The next thing got bigger. The next thing bigger. But the thing that I will say is like, he still remembers when he painted houses.
Yeah, well, humility is a golden trait, and like you have it.
Me, the guy who's working on a ditch. Yeah. That guy's fucking working.
Yeah, he's killing himself.
He's working.
I have mad respect for that.
I have mad respect for him. I respect him more than I respect myself, because
that's a hard job.
I'm like, I've never had a job. All I've done was this.
Yeah, but it's got, again, we often say in the studio, like, I've seen people get very, very upset, and I always take, would never want anyone to get upset, but at the end of the day, it's not like you're in an emergency room.
I remember.
No one's gonna die, hopefully.
I was working when my first child was born. Sebastian was born. I remember I was working on a Chris Young movie with Mark Zamosky and I forgot the engineer.
It happens.
Anyhow, and I think it was Rick Paconin.
Okay. Oh, I love him. And talented guy.
And I was like, I gotta go. Like, my wife's in labor. And I was so nervous to tell him I had to leave.
But he's cool. Rick would have been cool.
No. Rick was like, there's nothing more important than that.
Of course.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
It was just like...
But then we've met the people in our lives that would have been, you're not going anywhere.
Sure.
And that's when you know you're in the wrong room.
Well, that's when you know, like, fuck this person.
Yeah, fuck that.
And that's the thing that for me, again, like, all this time, I just... music has been... It's paid for my children's college.
Yeah.
The clothes I'm wearing.
Yeah, my house. I just paid off my house.
It's paid for everything. So I give it the highest respect. I don't think, there's anything that I could have done in this. I think I was made to do this.
Oh yeah, you found your spot for sure.
And it's like,
and we're so glad you did.
Yeah, I mean, my I tell my kids all the time, like,
find your bliss.
Not only that, but you got to remember, like, the arts paid for your life.
Yeah.
Just respect that.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't care if you're a mailman. I don't care whatever you want to do in life. As long as you're happy, try to do that.
Yeah, try to find something that makes you happy, and the money will come.
Only here for a little bit of time, man. It's so.
Dude, it's such a blip. I know it's
tiny.
such a blip on the radar. They're saying that kids that are born now will live to be like 150 years old. And my only comment about that is, do you have to work till you're 125?
Fuck that. I don't want to live that long.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't want to live that long.
I used to tease my mom. My mom is no longer with me, but she would say, I don't want to live to be 100. And I'd say, you do when you're 99.
Yeah.
But well, I just want to close by saying how much I respect you, and shout out to every band you've ever worked with, anyone that ever gave you a leg up or an opportunity. Same for me. I feel so grateful. I feel so grateful.
I'm grateful because actually I kind of like, you know, surrounded myself with women who have helped me.
Oh, well, good.
You,
love
Paula,
that.
Jane.
Oh yeah.
Melanie.
Oh yeah.
Kit. Rose.
Yeah.
I mean. And I'm sure I'm missing a few.
No, I feel blessed. You know, people often ask me to be on like it, and I am certainly a champion of women, but I'm an equal champion of men. And so when girls come to me and they go, "Oh, I'm a girl engineer," I'm like, "No, you're an engineer.
Yeah.
You know, learn the craft. You know, take that heart, use your hands, use your ears, do that." Because at the end of the day, and again, I'm not promoting women. I want to promote everybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to exclude anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would never do that for anyone, binary, non-binary, anybody who's doing what they love. I'm going to support you.
Yeah. And my advice for anybody is like, give a leg up to somebody who needs it.
Yeah.
Because
that
was done for me.
Pay it forward.
That was done for me.
Yeah, me too.
And it's like, so I talk to like young engineers now who are like, you know, what do I have to do to get, you know, become successful? It's still
pretty cutthroat.
I'm like, it's still the business, you know, it's like, it's not the business is not going to change. It's how you handle yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and how you kind of present yourself to people. And it's like, I'm only success. I don't know if I should call myself successful, but
you were successful.
I'm only good at what I do from the graciousness of other people who taught me how to do it.
Yeah. And then you know, I tell the kids that work for me, I'm like, look, you watch people and then you build your own style by watching what others are doing, and you cobble together your unique style.
Sure.
You know, and everybody does that. And I think everybody that works for me here at East West, and I think everyone, I don't know anyone who's ever said a bad thing about you. And I think it's because of that humility, though.
I know someone who has. We'll talk about that later.
Oh, yeah. But I think that it's that humility. And I think that, you know, you got to go in with purpose, and you got to know what you're doing, and you got to have your shit together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You owe it to the people that hired you to be prepared.
Yeah.
You know, but at the end of the day, you know, you got to be humble.
And there's hallways laced with people who are so good.
Oh, yeah.
But so bad as a person.
Yeah, that's not cool.
It's like,
I
know guys who are fucking talented engineers, but
that are dicks.
They're dicks. And
oh yeah, just be cool. That's the moral of this podcast. Just be cool.
I mean, after 30 years, some assistants that I know who got a chance at the brass ring, and they're like, well, what happened? And they're like, well, he just don't like working with the guy. He's just like a curmudgeon. He's just whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like, that just doesn't get
when
to me.
People are going to be in moods, and people are going to have bad days and stuff like that. Again, be prepared, because more often than not, you're going to get that first opportunity, like Robert did when Paul Rothschild showed up and said, hey, I have a session in an hour. Yeah. Can you help me with this vocal? Almost everybody that's ever worked for me has gotten the opportunity to first because someone was sick or someone couldn't make it or something else. And you be ready to jump. And I have put people in positions when I knew they weren't quite ready, but I knew they cared enough that they'd figure it out. Yeah. All right. So we're going to wrap up. And I just wanted to thank Robert again. And one of the things we were both just wanted to put, if there's a message, we wanted to say, you know what, give a leg up to somebody else. Be grateful for what you have. Support the arts in any way that you can. Buy product, go to the movies. You know, just remember that people's hearts are in this, and it comes from such a deep, deep place when a creator makes music or film or anything like that. So thanks to everybody that's ever made any music that we've heard, and be cool.
I love Greasy Will.
We love Greasy Will. He loves you. That's Will Onspach. Yeah, I love him too. We have a joke that he's going to be taking care of me at the nursing home. They're going to show up with the verb co. But thank you for listening. Yep. Again, it's Candace Stewart with Trade Secrets, and my guest today was Robert Carranza. God bless everybody, and thanks for listening. Bye. And I want you to listen to the one with Chris Dexter. It's my favorite one so far. It's only the third one I released. And he is